Man, it's been too goddamn long.
Since what?
Since your mama called. Nah, man. Since Blizzard touched on anything Sub-Rogue.
Sub-Rogue even existed
Until now.
The fuck are we talking about even?
Shut up, man. Buffs to shadow techniques, black powder, Sub-Rogue being one of the top DPS in raids and dungeons, rivaling Alpha Row and Mythic Plus, and your mama still ain't gold.
What? Man, why do you gotta always say something about my mama? I'm telling my dad.
Relax, dude. I just want to make her feel legendary so she can join my covenant and I can learn her new talents, get a proper opener, and just take her out to a shadow dance. Hey, I know it's the beginning of the video, but you can give it a like right now, and by the end of it, if you feel it's not worthy, you can cancel it. No, please, don't cancel it. We really need likes on the videos now because YouTube says so, and more people need to watch these guys so we can have a bigger diversity in the meta, you know? Like the video, and I'll pet my dog today for an hour and give him some treats. First row brings you the single target choice in Weapon Master, as this will provide your backstab and shadow strike a 15% chance to strike twice and a small damage increase in damage. Plus, when it does happen, the second strike provides combo points plus backstab was buffed anyway, so yay Weapon Master! For dungeons though, premeditation is your choice as you will get 10 seconds of slice and dice from your first shadow strike, and if you already have slice and dice up, then shadow strike will extend its duration by 10 seconds and you get 2 bonus combo points. Although Gloomblade was buffed too for 9.1, that buff was only to match the buff to backstab and does not affect competition with any of the 2 talents, so stick to Weapon Master for raids and premeditation for dungeons. Shadow Focus is the choice here for all PvE content, as this will make your abilities cost 20% less energy while in stealth or in Shadow Dance, and this is a very beginner friendly talent too, because in Shadowlands the duration of Shadow Dance increased from 5 to 8 seconds and a lot of new subs seem to struggle with energy in this bigger time frame, so having your abilities cost less is a breath of fresh air and adds to the smoothness Sub-Rogues are known for. On the third row, Deeper Stratagem is the winner for a flat-out DPS boost as you get a maximum of 6 instead of 5 combo points and a passive damage bonus to all of your finishers. Mark for that is usually the best for PvP and really good in Torghast, but for dungeons and raids, not everyone enjoys the playstyle. I mean, it's good, but seeing as this is a more beginner-friendly guide, we shall stick to Stratagem. On the fourth row, Cheat Dead is a talent designed for your average fuck-up who doesn't really dodge everything and finds himself hugging a big juicy frontal. Think Flame here. No, but seriously, this can actually be used strategically too in some fights or dungeons to soak a mechanic or stay in front of some nasty ability in case your designated teammate is dead or cannot do it for some reason. Lots of pro rogues actually recommend Elusiveness as it did get buffed together with Feint in 9.1, making it last for 1 extra second. So now you can get a 6-second 30% damage reduction when pressing Feint, but again, you have to predict bad shit incoming and it is a thing of practice. So start off with Cheat Dead, and after you learn fight mechanics and you feel comfy, you can start using Feint with Elusiveness to mitigate damage where you know that direct damage reduction can be beneficial. Next up, Prey on the Weak is the universal pick just because of the added benefit of 10% increased damage from all sources to your sapped, kit need, or cheap shot targets, but arguments can be made for the other talents as well, depending on the situation. Night Terrors will have your Shuriken Storm slow mobs for 30%, and this will be very useful for your tanks in necrotic weeks, for example, where they really have to get away and kite. And applying a slow with Shuriken can be more reliable than hoping for crippling poison procs, which you may not even be using. But on the other hand, if your team comp lacks any stuns, then Shot in the Dark can be a good option. It will make your cheap shot energy free after you go into stealth or shadow dance. And listen, sometimes it's more useful to help your team by cheap shotting 3 or 4 mobs in your shadow dance, especially if they are free and the situation is looking grim. Row number 6 still sees Enveloping Shadows as the best choice all around. It will net you an additional charge of Shadow Dance with a 0.5 second addition to the cooldown reduction on your Deepening Shadows passive. Or, in other words, faster Shadow Dances and an extra charge just in case the freaking access to it isn't enough. Sadly, Alacrity does little to nothing for Sub-Rogue as opposed to Outlaw or Sin, and Dark Shadow has a worse overall output, even if it does sound like it's more bursty. Lastly, Master of Shadows is the go-to for pure single target. Why? Because I said so! Nah. It helps with energy management as you gain 25 of it in over 3 seconds when going into Shadowlands, or simply just after entering stealth. A change for dungeons, however, you will not go for Secret Technique anymore, but rather Shuriken Tornado, as this 1 minute cooldown will have you throw Shuriken Storms every second for 4 seconds, and man is it powerful when you're fighting more than 4 mobs, as you will be able to chain 4 casts of Black Powder or Eviscerate on priority targets. The reason why this has become the choice in 9.1 is mostly of the buffs to Shuriken Storm and Black Powder, which naturally give Tornado more AoE value, where Secret Technique was already suffering from lack of synergies. For stats, agility is your numero uno concern, obviously, so look to equip your highest item level armor pieces except rings and necklaces. For secondary stats, the absolute best way to find out your ideal stats is to sim. Raidbots.com is where it's at, and no other source can give you more exact info. But if you cannot be bothered, here is a very general list of secondaries for sub. Versatility comes first with a flat-out damage increase, which also affects some trinkets and weapon effects, plus it has its defensive value, which is always useful. Critical Strike comes next, very close to versatility and possibly better in AoE, especially as it works in tandem with your Shuriken Storm passive, where crits apply Find Weakness to the target's hit. More targets with Find Weakness equals more damage to them equals more of you on top of details. Hey! Haste comes after with maybe a bit less value than the other two. Don't get me wrong, haste is good to have. I mean, more energy regeneration, faster rupture ticks, and attack speed. All these are great, especially in raids, but it does tend to fall behind mastery in AoE, where finishers like Eviscerate on priority targets and Black Powders for big groups are affected directly, and we make use of them much more than in single target. Moving over to enchants, be sure to have Celestial Guidance on your main dagger for the chance to proc agility, and on the other dagger take Lightless Force if you want more AoE damage, or Sinful Revelation for raids and funnel damage. With Sinful Revelation, especially against 2-3 targets, keep an eye out on what targets you proc the debuff on and consider focusing accordingly. Your chest should have the Eternal Stats enchants, because a bit more increased all stats never hurt nobody. Your boots make you more agile, thus Eternal Agility enchant with no questions asked. Your bracers don't really help you too much with your brain, and since the only enchant for braces is intellect, don't bother. I miss my comedian career, I know. Shut up. Your gems and rings enchants will be either Tenet of Critical Strike and Deadly Jewel Cluster for Critical Strike, or Tenet of Versatility and Versatile Jewel Cluster for, you guessed it, genius versatility. Again, the best way to make a decision for all these is to go ahead and sim yourself. Spectral Flasks of Power should always be in your bag regardless of content. You know, for an extra agility gain, and use Potion of Phantom Fire if you plan on raiding, especially if you have some Shadow Core oils. They work well together because oils catch fire. I made the connection, because I'm smart like that. When you go into dungeons, take Potion of Spectral Agility and Shaded Sharpening Stones for your daggers. For culinary choices, any rogue will appreciate and get good value from the feast, cause more agility. But if none of it is around, then go either for a steak a la mode for versatility, or Spine Fiend Soufflé and fries for crit, because we all know French fries can be critical. Hey! Okay, I'll stop. Time for Covenants! As you probably know by now, in all of our rogue guides, we always say that performance-wise, all Covenants are very close to each other, and you should really pick a Covenant based on what your personal likings are, on vibe, story, aesthetics, and such. But if you really want to min-max, and more specifically, if you want to change specs at some point, then today we shall advise for Venthir. And I'm saying this because Assassination also prefers Venter for both Mythic Plus and Raids, and since performance-wise right now, Sub is really close to Outlaw in dungeons, I wouldn't really see you swapping to Outlaw unless you really enjoyed that spec. Case in which you should wait for our Outlaw Rogue guide. Venter brings a very powerful new legendary in Obedience, which we will cover shortly in the legendary section, but there it is. Venter for Sub Rogue in all PvE content. Flagellation is the main damage ability from Venter, and it's really good because it deals a decent amount of shadow damage initially, and all Sub Rogues love shadow damage. Then it continues to add to that damage with each combo point spent, that on a smaller percentage of attack power. It also increases your haste by 1% while dealing damage, and the new legendary adds an increase to your versatility by 0.5% as well. And all these will last 12 seconds too after the initial 12 seconds of the ability. Nadia remains the best soulbind all around for Sub, and this especially due to the Dauntless Duelist trait, which will deal 3% extra damage to the first target you hit, and they will deal 1.5% less damage back to you. This only works on one enemy at a time, but still really good. You can opt for Theothar if you plan on doing more dungeons because of his trait Soothing Shade, which will have Tubbins and Gubbins come by your side and pull out their umbrella, creating a shade where if you stand in it, you gain a decent chunk of mastery, and as you learned in the stats section, mastery is good in AoE. If you find it annoying to see the shade or your tank really likes to move a lot, then stick to Nadia. It's more convenient and the differences are really small. The main conduit you want to look out for is Lashing Scars, which increases the damage of flagellation, not flatulation, you nerds, and it will have it lash for 4 more times. Planned Execution is yet another great conduit to look after because it will have your Symbols of Death increase your critical strike chance. Very good for dungeons. You can also go for Deeper Daggers, a very nice conduit where Eviscerate and Black Powder increase your shadow damage by a percentage for 8 seconds. In terms of endurance conduits, you can go for Recuperator, adding a nice heal over time effect to your Slice and Dice, and for Finesse, Quick Decision is always a winner due to its interaction with Shadow Step, increasing its rage and reducing its cooldown. Oh, you know we have to talk about the Edge of Night Daggers from Sylvanas, as these are by far the most important pieces of gear you want to have your eyes on because, well, they're BIS. Having a higher item level means more agility first of all, and the effect is just juicy. Your attacks will apply Banshee's Blight, giving your finishers a 3% per combo point, so a minimum of 15% chance to deal shadow damage. Shadow damage which is increased by your Deeper Daggers conduit. Also, the Blight will stack up to 4 times as your target's HP goes below multiples of 25%. The main trinket you want is still Phial of Putrefaction, and this for any type of content, with a secondary one to assist you being the Salvaged Fusion Amplifier, which on use for 20 seconds, your attacks have a very high chance to deal arcane damage. Really good considering Slice and Dice and stuff. This one drops from the Guardian of the first ones, but hey, if it's a bitch to get there, you can go hunting for Ticking Sack of Terror from the Tazavesh dungeon, a trinket that will net your attacks and abilities a high chance to apply a stack of Volatile Satchel, and after reaching 3 stacks, it will detonate for a good chunk of fire damage. Do note that this trinket will be at a fixed item level, but even so, it is on par with the other ones that are, well, let's say 10 or more item levels above it, so if it drops, keep it. Next up, everyone's new Shadowlands system, Domination Shards. Hell yeah! Sub Rogue, as many other DPS specs, will favor 3 Unholy Shards to get the Chaos Bane bonus, which is a really fancy mechanic to get some more agility. So, look for Shard of Diz, Shard of Oth, and Shard of Zed as your first 3 sockets. After that, you can go for Shard of Beck and Shard of Cord for your other 2 free slots, as these will just add a flat increase to your damage. Please keep in mind that the set bonus only works in the Maw, Torghast, and the Sanctum of Domination raid. That means that for Mythic Plus, you can freely combine shards as you wish and can prioritize the 3 DPS ones. For the raid, there is no question, you go for Obedience, as this is by far the best option for single target. As mentioned earlier, this will add a 0.5% versatility to your attacks, and each combo point spent while Flagellation is active will decrease Flagellation's cooldown by 1 second, having it better aligned with Shadow Dance and symbols. Be sure to craft this on your cloak. Finality is the one you want for Mythic Plus or when not playing Ventir, because due to it, after you use Eviscerate, Rupture or Black Powder, your next Eviscerate, Rupture and Black Powder will be buffed by 25%, and all these buffs can be active at the same time. You Eviscerate first, you have the 25% buff after that. Then you Black Powder, you also gain the buff for that, and so on. Imagine this beauty with Shuriken Tornado. For the rotation, we're going to take the Ventir example with Obedience as legendary for single target and Finality for dungeons. The main idea is to pair up Shadow Dance with Symbols of Death and build up combo points while spending them once they reach an amount of 5 or 6. For your single target opener, you first go into Stealth, obviously. Engage the boss with Shadow Strike. Slice and Dice if it's not up already from Premeditation, otherwise Rupture. Shadow Blaze plus Symbols of Death if not Ventir. Enter Shadow Dance, Shadow Strike until 5 or 6 combo points, use Flagellation now and Symbols of Death as Ventir, then Eviscerate, Shadow Strike again until 5-6 combo points, Eviscerate again. And after this, you always have to take note of the priority, and do note that what you're gonna see here is not the order in which you have to place your abilities, but rather the importance they have once they become available. This part here is made to give you a graphical representation, so please ignore the energy and combo point capping. First on the list, use Shadow Blades on cooldown. Use Vanish on cooldown. Maintain Slice and Dice and try to refresh it before your Shadow Dance come back. Maintain Rupture on your primary target, and same as Slice and Dice, try to refresh it before Shadow Dance. Next up, use Symbols of Death paired up with Shadow Dance, and always try to be at 60 energy before this to get as much energy as possible. Next on the priority is Eviscerate with 5+ combo points. And lastly, Shadow Strike when in Shadow Dance or Backstab when out of it to generate combo points. For multi-target, you first have to always make sure you maintain Slice and Dice. If there are 6 or more mobs, then forget about it. Maintain Rupture only if you know that your main target will live more than 12 seconds. In AoE situations, you can drop it against 5 or more targets. Use Shuriken Tornado and then use both Symbols and Shadow Dance in the first second before the first Shuriken Storm goes off. If there are 3 or more targets and you are still in Shadow Dance, use Shuriken Storm. Cast Black Powder as the main spender at 5+ combo points, again when facing 3 or more mobs. And finally, use Shuriken Storm to generate combo points. Alright, listen, Sub Rogue is no walk in the park, and boy is it mega fun to play. And this guide should cover you the basics, but for even more advanced stuff, I strongly recommend visiting the Ravenhold Discord, where you will get help from amazing people like Whisper, Fu, and Mystler. I mean, Mystler, being the champion that he always is, helped us yet again with fact-checking and proofreading the script, so you don't get all of my misinterpretations as facts. You can check his Sub-Rogue guide on Wowhead, his Twitch as well, with all the links in the description. No, but seriously, check these boys out. They do wonders for the WoW community. Rogues especially. And you know who else does wonders? Our Patreons! And that's true, because without you guys, a lot of this content would not be possible, so here's a big, fat, and wet thank you, huh? Hey, you can get one too if you decide to support us, and the link is in the description. Our content is basically weekly class guides, weekly spec podcasts with some of the most knowledgeable players out there, weekly news and weekly TLFs, you know, the Tier List Fridays. Anyways, cheers for watching the video and see you soon. Flame's mom still didn't call.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.